And welcome to today's edition of Dr. Carole's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Well, today we have a great guest. The show is called When the Left Doesn't Win at the Ballot Box, They Whine at the Judge's Bench. And that is uh, reflects what we're going to be talking about today with my guest, Christina Bobb. Um, because, first of all, we're going to be talking about her book, her latest book. We've talked about, you were on before when we talked about your prior book, and that was
Mhm.
called Stealing Your Vote: The Inside Story of the 2020 Election and What It Means for 2024. So here we are in 2025. And her new book is called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. So yes, that's why I was saying that the title combines both the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the ongoing lawfare. The fact that even to this very day, judges and attorneys are trying to stop President Trump. He won the election, but they're trying to stop him any place else that they can, really, including lawfare. Um, so the let me give you a little background about Christina Bobb. I asked her before we started, where do you go from here? The foreword to her book Defiant is written by President Trump. So I said, where do you go from here when you have a book that where the foreword is written by Trump? I don't know. Um, Let me tell you a little bit more about her, though. Um, this book, Defiant, is a shocking personal account that will take you behind the scenes of the infamous Mar-a-Lago raid. I remember watching that on television. And talk about the abuses of power, the FBI agents breaking locks while they were offered keys, etc. Christina Bobb is an attorney in Washington, D.C., particularly specializing in national security law. Before this, she worked as an investigative reporter, a former television show host, and a correspondent with One America News Network. And she began her legal career. This is the part that always, has impressed me. Being in the United States Marine Corps, we're not talking, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with the Army and the Navy, but being a Marine. um, and She was a defense counsel representing Marines and sailors in court-martial and administrative separation hearings. She also served in multiple overseas tours, including Afghanistan. And then after her military service, she went into private practice, and first in San Diego and then in Washington, D.C., and where she held executive level positions within the Department of Homeland Security. And now you are with judicial, where did it go? Um,
Yeah,
Judicial, I get their
Judicial Watch. Yes,
Judicial Watch. We'll talk about that a little bit later, like, how and why
sure.
and what you're going to be doing there. Okay, so let's start with Defiant.
Yes.
First of all, um, you were there when they were doing the raid. So I mean, I'm wondering what it was like being there while they stormed Mar-a-Lago. Were there any advance notices at all?
Not to my knowledge. I don't think so. I certainly wasn't notified ahead of time. So I was a staff attorney for President Trump at the time. I began working for him just a few months prior to that. And then his defense team that was working on this case brought me on as the custodian of records. So I was actually the custodian of records for Mar-a-Lago throughout the case. And then when they raided on August 8th of 2022, I received a call because nobody was in the area. It was summer, the club was closed,
Huh.
the president had gone back to Bedminster, staff was gone. And so they needed someone on site. So they asked me to respond. So the FBI got there before I did.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was shocking considering how cooperative and how agreeable we had been, the president himself had been. Donald Trump was like, anything you need, I'm happy to show you around. Would you like to see Mar-a-Lago? How much of it do you want to see? Everything they wanted to see, they had access to. And then they raided the place.
Yes, because that's a lot more dramatic and a lot more where they could do a lot more behind
Yeah.
the scenes. I don't know. Somehow I have this picture, like if that were my job, I'd be hiding in a closet somewhere, but of course you couldn't do that.
No, I definitely wasn't doing that. And I gave them a run for their money. I mean, I obviously didn't get arrested and didn't do anything illegal, but I pushed the boundaries as far as I could, as far as demanding to see the warrant ahead of time, asking questions, taking pictures, doing all of the things that I could legally do. Um, they preferred that I sit in the car and wait till it was over, which of course I didn't do. But yeah, they were not happy that I was there.
How many agents were there?
I would say about 3 dozen. There were a lot. It was a
Three
very long
dozen.
day. Yeah.
Wow. So
Well, I
obviously,
mean, and I don't know who were agents and who were like DOJ attorneys.
well,
So, if we're getting specific, I don't actually know, but there were about 3 dozen people there, I would guess.
so so when they called you to come there, I guess the president knew already, right, that they were going to be doing that, or no?
Well, yeah, I mean, they found out as soon as the FBI showed up, and I don't know who was first contacted. Obviously, Secret Service is on site, so Secret Service contacted either the president or Susie Wiles, and they got all that coordinated. And then the defense team, because what people forget, or actually was never really covered well about this story initially,
Yeah.
this was all coming out of Washington, D.C. This was never intended to be a Florida case. This was never an obstruction of justice case in Florida. This was always a case in Washington, D.C., where the Department of Justice and FBI were trying to create some type of Hillary Clinton email scandal-esque espionage
Uh-huh,
case. The
uh-huh.
grand jury was in Washington, D.C. The subpoenas came out of Washington, D.C. The lead attorneys were Washington, D.C. DOJ attorneys. The lead FBI agents were D.C. Like all of this was done by Washington, D.C. When I got subpoenaed, I had to go to Washington, D.C. Despite the fact that I lived in Florida, I worked in Florida, I met with the Department of Justice in Florida, I met with President Trump in Florida, I signed for the documents in Florida, I witnessed the raid in Florida. My entire role was in Florida.
Uh-huh.
Yet I had to go to Washington, D.C. to respond to this because they were trying to concoct some type of, espionage-esque type case. And they never had probable cause for that. They were never even able to secure an indictment on that because they did not have any evidence that there was any wrongdoing on the part of the president. But they had raided Mar-a-Lago. And so now you have the entire world staring at them going, why did you raid Mar-a-Lago? And so they had to come up with something. So that's when they shifted everything down to Florida and created an obstruction of justice case that was bogus. Everybody knew it was bogus. It wasn't going to go anywhere. Of course, it didn't go anywhere. But they had to file that case in Florida because they couldn't bring anything in DC.
Huh. It did seem to kind of like quickly appear and disappear in the media because there wasn't a there there.
Yeah, they thought for sure all they had to do was get into Mar-a-Lago. If they could just get into Mar-a-Lago, they'd be able to prove that Donald Trump is a criminal. And so they did, and they were wrong.
Similar to the Epstein case. They're trying to dig for something there, and there's really no there either. I mean, yes, he
Well,
was friends with Jeffrey Epstein for a while, but there was no, first of all, Virginia Giuffre and even Ghislaine recently
yeah.
talked about how Trump never did anything wrong, you know.
Yeah. President Trump had nothing to do with the Epstein case. Jeffrey Epstein was banned from Mar-a-Lago. I
Yes.
mean, uh, that's a nothing burger. I think people that are upset about the Epstein files are upset because somebody did something, and people are tired of this two-tiered system of justice of, the rich and powerful getting away with things
Right.
and everybody else being held to account. So I think that's the consternation about the Epstein case. And I don't have information on that, but I think what Americans are clamoring for is they want the rich and powerful held accountable
Yeah.
because they've been dragging our country through hell, honestly. I mean, that's just what it's been for their own political gain, for their own power plays, and people are sick of it.
Yes, yes. And then there was a list of names that came out a while ago, a long time ago, and I don't know that and nothing ever happened. I mean, Clinton's name, Clinton.
Yeah.
There are a whole bunch of people on the list that already came out, and nothing happened to them. So, I mean, yet anyway.
Right. That's the key word is yet. Who knows what's coming.
Yes, I hope. The Clintons have had something coming for years and years that they've gotten away with. Um, I'm not suggesting that they're going to continue because Trump doesn't take that. But let's see. Um, so well, let's talk about the Lawfare. Well, just one thing, then they went to Biden's garage, right?
Yes.
And it was a mess, and it was left out there for anybody. The door was up.
Hmm.
Any stranger could have come by and dug into those papers if they knew, what it was, or even if they didn't, just if they were curious. And he didn't get into any trouble for that. A senile, or I don't think they said senile, but that something a sympathetic old man who has a poor memory. Remember what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he didn't have to pay for that.
Yeah, no, they quite literally prosecuted Donald Trump for the crimes that Joe Biden committed. Donald Trump didn't commit any crimes. He was in lawful possession of everything that he had. The Presidential Records Act is clear. It's the president and only the president who gets to determine what he takes with him and what he leaves, classified or not. The fact that the documents may or may not have been classified or, whatever their classification was, it doesn't matter. It's still the president and only the president who determines what he's allowed to keep. So they had to try to change it into some sort of obstruction of justice mishandling case that also they really didn't have there was no way they were ever going to be able to prove that. But they got caught because they thought that they were going to be able to prove a different case in DC and they just didn't have it.
So with the obstruction of justice, were you the one that they were saying obstructed the justice by your being there, or what?
So no, that's the whole indictment. There's like 39 counts, and they said it was the president and one of his, or actually two of his valets, people who work for him, saying that they had moved to the boxes. They never moved to the boxes off the premises. They never did anything illegal, but because the president himself never actually handled the documents, how do you charge him with mishandling documents that he never handled?
Hmm.
So they had to try to say that his staff mishandled the documents at his direction, which of course was never accurate, but that's the way they played it.
So what was your role beyond, was it one day or more than one day that they were there?
So the raid itself was one day. So my role started about 2 months before when I came in as the custodian of records. With the Defense Council, I met with the Department of Justice and the FBI. The book has text messages, emails, conversations, everything that took place to the lead up to the raid. So you can make up your own mind if you think it was appropriate or not. I offer that there was no probable cause, but you can decide whatever you want. And then after that, of course, I got pulled into the whole investigation. I was subpoenaed. I was forced to undergo an interview slash interrogation, excuse me, with the Department of Justice and the FBI in Washington, D.C., not in Florida. And then I also had to testify before the grand jury. I also was subpoenaed in the Jack Smith case, I'm sorry, in the January 6th Jack Smith investigation. So as part of both Jack Smith investigations, I got hauled before Congress to testify before the J6 committee. I was subpoenaed, I want to say 4 or 5 other times on other civil suits. I was sued by Dominion for $1.6 billion. I
What?
was investigated by the California bar to try to defend my bar license. And then I was indicted in Arizona.
Wait, let's go back.
This is all true. Like the left is not only going after Donald Trump.
Well, yes, like why did you have to defend your bar license? That reminds me of like in California with doctors or in other places too, where doctors having to defend their
Yeah.
vaccine license because they told a patient to not take the vaccine. But why did they want to take away your lawyer license?
Because they said they were trying to say that I was part of some conspiracy with Donald Trump to hide evidence from the Department of Justice or whatever, but that was never true. There was never any evidence that it was true. The Department of Justice never actually even claimed that. It was just people, that wanted to see me lose my law license. And so they didn't have any proof that it was true because it wasn't true. And so thankfully, I kept my license. I made it through that. But they tried. And then they ended, I don't know if you can see it. This is my mugshot. I was arrested in Arizona.
Oh my God, I've been looking at that picture
Yeah.
when I was looking at your website and or the book or some. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was looking at some other interview that you did, and I was looking at that, and I was thinking, "Huh, that's not her."
It's me.
Wow.
That's my mugshot. I got arrested in May of 2024 in Arizona for support. I mean, really just for my reporting. At the time, I was a reporter, but they sucked me into the alternate electors case. Um, I was never in Arizona. I never spoke with any of the electors about being an elector. I had no information. I never emailed anybody in the state of Arizona. But I was named the senior counsel for election integrity for the RNC for the 2024 election cycle. And it seemed to serve their purpose to try to smear me. So they included me in an indictment that nobody should have been indicted. There was no crime that was committed, but they had to try to make waves. So they indicted a bunch of us illegally. The judge has thrown it out, saying that that the Arizona Attorney General violated our constitutional rights with the indictment. So the indictment's been thrown out. But the case is still open. They haven't closed the case. The judge is giving the attorney general time to figure out if she can charge us some other way with something. So I don't know that she'll be successful on that. I don't think she'll be successful on that, but I'm waiting to see. But so they're still coming after me. They're still coming after about 60 of us. There's several of, not just Arizona, it's Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia. People forget about the Fani Willis case. That case is still open.
Yes, I
Donald
know
Trump's
she appealed. She appealed.
yeah, yeah, but she's still trying to prosecute these people, and all of them are still facing the indictment.
Yeah.
So all of these state cases and local county cases are still open. So these liberals that are crying, going, "Oh, Donald Trump is weaponizing justice." Um, Excuse me, you are still coming after us. So until you drop all of your charges,
Yes.
until you guys all admit that you were wrong, that you never should have charged us in the first place, that none of this activity was criminal, you know, spare me your tears.
Yes. You know, I want to, would you put it, we're kind of running out of time in this segment, but um, would you say that that it had to do with lawyers, your
My
your
bar license?
peers, your what?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Lawyer, this was in California, right? And you were practicing in California at the time.
I was not. I was
Oh,
a staff attorney for the president in Florida.
oh,
California had nothing to do with this, which is kind of weird. It's like, why did California insert itself to something that happened in Florida?
but
They
but you
chose
had
to.
your law license was in California.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So do you think it was just like, the saying jealousy de femme? Do you think your peers were just jealous of your position and angry because you're, a supporter of Donald Trump? Was that like that was really what it boiled down to, or what?
It could have been. I mean, the complaint was anonymous, so I'm not allowed to know who filed it.
Huh.
So I don't know who filed it, but yeah, I mean, yes, it was people who hate Donald Trump and they want to hurt anybody who supports him. So yes, that's what it came down to.
Huh. All right. Well, we'll get back. Well, I'll ask you about Dominion when we come back. But
Okay.
for right now, we're going to take our first break. My guest is Christina Bobb. Her new book just came out, is called Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. So stay tuned. You're listening to Dr. Carol's Couch, or watching it, I guess, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Today, my guest is Christina Bobb. She is the author of a new book, her second book, that was called Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. That's the book, and I called the show, When the Left Doesn't Win at the Ballot Box, They Whine at the Judge's Bench. Snarky. A bit snarky, but that's me. Um, Okay, so before the break, you were talking about getting sued, and get almost people want to take your law license away, and people
Hmm.
and Dominion suing you for billions, millions, billions. When it gets to be millions, it doesn't matter.
Billions, yeah.
Billions. Where were you supposed to get billions? So how did that? Okay, what did they think you did wrong? Why did they sue you?
Well, as you're aware, they sued a lot of people, and I think they sued me. I don't actually know why they sued me. They ended up dismissing me from the case, which I'm really grateful for. I think once they took a closer look at my role, because I was reporting on the election, I did a lot of extensive reporting on the 2020 election. I didn't really cover the Dominion aspect of it, to be honest. I said a couple things about Dominion on television that I could prove were true. They all came from like official letters, and so I never said anything on television that wasn't true. The crux of their case against me was a social media post. Uh, they wanted $1.6 billion for a social media post for sourcing. I had summarized some of the allegations that apparently weren't true. Once I was made aware of that, I asked for the social media post to be taken down. It wasn't even my social media account. Um, and that was the end of it. So personally, I don't know that I damaged them. I leave that to them to assess, but they ended up dismissing me from the case 4 years later. I had to go through the
Oh,
lawsuit for 4 years. But 4 years into it, they took a closer look at it and said, okay, yeah, we'll let you go. So they let me out.
after they had gotten some billions from other people from Fox, I guess, right?
They got a lot of money, a lot of millions from a couple people. And I'm hopeful that the litigation is coming to an end because a lot of people are going through hell on it. Um, but I don't know. I'm just grateful I'm not in it anymore. It was incredibly stressful, incredibly damaging. As a reporter, to have a $1.6 billion lawsuit hanging over your head, not great. It's not great for your credibility. It's not great for your reputation. So it really did hurt my reputation. But
Yes, you should be suing them for suing you.
I'm not doing that. But yeah, so I'm grateful it's over. I'm grateful it's behind me.
So let's talk about some more of the lawfare. I mean, I guess we hadn't, well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot more, so yeah. Um, what I remember talking about, like doing interviews about, and I don't really remember, I don't know if I'm going to be able to remember all the details, but it was um it was before um Trump ran in 24. Um
Hmm.
It was like, I guess, during the campaign. And there was this thing that there were all these lawfare lawsuits going on, including Fannie Willis and a whole bunch of other people. The woman, the one that got me, I was really the woman who sued him for raping her in
In a dressing room that, yeah, she basically stole from
uh,
what was it, special SV Law
order.
and Order episode?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
right, right. I mean, how that didn't, I had wanted to be the expert. I think I called you. I had wanted to be the expert witness on that case because I think if there had been a psychiatric expert witness, like if I had been allowed to examine
yeah.
her, which normally under normal cases, normal situations, I'm allowed to do, I would have been able to show how she was lying, how she was just making this up. Anyway, so there was that. And so I had read somewhere that what they were trying to do was get him convicted of a felony with all these different lawsuits.
Hmm.
I had read somewhere, I was looking it up, that if someone is convicted, if a president is convicted of a felony, I don't, I mean, yes, I know you could still run for president and be elected president,
Hmm.
but you wouldn't have Secret Service protection. There was something about not having protection. And I put it all together and figured out, and I mean, albeit that I don't remember all the details, but at the time, and it made a lot of sense that the reason why they were trying to do that, besides, of course, trying to put him in jail so that people wouldn't vote for him and all that, the obvious stuff, but I thought that the secret stuff was that then they would be able to not protect him. I mean, yes, if he was in jail, theoretically, well, look what happened to Epstein, but anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so I thought that that was another reason why they were trying to convict him of a felony.
Yeah, these people are absolutely evil. They obviously wanted him dead. They were openly calling to remove his Secret Service when there were clearly death threats on his life. Everything about what they wanted to do was abhorrent. I mean, it was just downright evil. If they can't beat him, if he's too popular, if too many Americans love him to the point where he's going to win the election, they would prefer to kill him. I mean, it's that deranged. It's that horrible what they are stooping to try to control power in this nation.
Yes. And so now that he got elected, too big to rig. Um,
Yep. Yep.
and so now, and he's trying to do all of these great things. So in other words, it wasn't just before the election, as you obviously know, it's that they're continuing because they're trying to stop all these things
Yeah.
that he promised he would do to make
Hmm.
America great again, and they're trying to stop it. Um, so from things like not deporting the people who are, like at the colleges and so on, or um, just all the different things that he's trying to get through. So how is he, what is happening now? I
Yeah.
mean, I know these things are presumably on appeal, but like how many are actually, how much is he still getting through?
Yeah. Well, he is winning on the appeals. They're forcing, so what they're doing is they're shifting their tactics to fight him in civil court. They were fighting him in criminal court prior to the election because they were trying to keep him out of office. Now that he's in office, they can't prosecute him, and he's in control of the Department of Justice. So they no longer have the federal criminal system to try to thwart him. So they really, the only other way they can do it now is through civil lawsuits, which is why we're seeing this huge uptick in civil lawsuits, because they're trying to throw sand in the gears of his agenda to try to make sure that he cannot be as successful as he wants to be, as he's capable of being. They're trying to make it very, very hard for him to carry out his agenda. And so that's why we're seeing all of these civil lawsuits, and they're bringing them before judges that they know are biased, that they know are going to side in their favor. And a lot of times that's what's happening at the lower courts, sometimes at the appellate level, but definitely at the district court level. And then it forces him to appeal, and he's winning more on appeal, and then he's winning almost everything at the Supreme Court. So
Yeah,
I mean, they're just making it difficult and just making it really hard.
delaying.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, well, do you have anything, are you involved in any way in any of these cases?
Not in any of these cases. So these are all, from the administration. I'm not in the administration, at least not now. So no, so I'm on the outside with Judicial Watch.
Yes, tell us about Judicial Watch. I get their emails all the time, and they're doing great things.
Yes.
And how did you wind up there, and what are you doing there?
Yeah, so I'm an attorney. I'm a litigator for Judicial Watch. We do a lot of FOIA work, a lot of FOIA litigation,
Freedom of Information Act.
Freedom of Information Act, right? And yeah, just trying to uncover things that the government hasn't exposed. And we just dig into a lot of productions and dig through documents and paperwork that we get. And then we fight for the stuff that we didn't get. And we try to fight for whatever they're trying to withhold. So yeah, we've got a lot of great cases. The most recent production I got back was we got some information from the Department of Homeland Security indicating that Tim Walz was on their radar as um, connected to China. They believe that he was
Hmm.
friendly with China, and China wanted Tim Walz to be in Washington, D.C. because
Hmm.
he was a friend of China. And so that was something that the intelligence community was aware of and that they were tracking, and it wasn't publicized to the American people.
Right.
Um, Ashley Babbitt's case, she got a settlement. She was the January 6er who was murdered by a Capitol police officer.
Right.
Um, she we represented her family. We got a settlement for her family, and then recently she was just given honors, Air Force honors, burial honors, which is also really great. We're doing a lot of work on the Epstein stuff, on the Robert Hur tapes. Um, yeah, I mean, pretty much anything that's in the news, we've got a lawsuit on it.
Um, the Robert Hur tapes would be wonderful. I would love to hear those as an
Yep.
expert witness. Um, because I don't know if we ever talked about this, but when Biden was running against Trump from his basement, uh, as an ex psychiatric expert witness, I do all kinds of cases, but including cases about competency. So
Hmm.
when Biden was running, I could tell from the very beginning that he had, well, I called it encroaching dementia. And
Hmm.
I did a ton of media interviews trying to warn people, hey, look, this guy, it's encroaching.
Yeah.
And obviously it has encroached, a lot more during his 4 years. So it would be interesting to see how much is, what is shown. I mean, I'm sure it's very significant. Able to make the diagnosis through these her tapes, Robert Hur tapes, through what he says and his pauses and his. I mean, are the tapes just audio or also video?
I don't know. They should be both. They should have audio and video, but we're trying to get all of it.
Yeah, because you can diagnose it through from that, really.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. So what made you move over to there?
So after the election, I was still under indictment at the time. I was still being sued. I still had a lot of the lawfare going on, and so I wasn't really in a place to try to go into the administration, even though I'm close with President Trump and I love everything they're doing and I fully support the admin. I needed a place where I could, still kind of finish out some of my cases. I love Judicial Watch. They're an amazing organization, and so I reached out and applied, and I told them my situation, and they were wonderful and invited me on board.
Oh, that's very cool. So you're doing a different kind of working in a different way.
Yeah, still supporting,
You
supporting.
are.
Shouldn't even say supporting. It doesn't support the administration. It supports transparency, which I think this administration is trying to be very transparent.
Yes,
So,
that's one of the things. Like with all the meetings, with Zelensky and
yeah,
the European leaders and all of that. I mean, Trump is I love that about him that he doesn't care. He's not trying to hide anything. So
yeah,
what happens happens and he is how he is and I think the American people appreciate that.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
because what you see is what you get. Not all of them like what they see, but
Yeah.
what you see is what you get. And it's an amazing change to have a president be that open.
Absolutely. It's great. It's so nice to see. And it's not just looking at him and seeing what he's doing and how he's carrying himself, but you get to see his cabinet. The cabinet meetings, you get to see what the attorney general is like and what the
Yeah,
director of national intelligence or the CIA or the FBI and how they all interact with each other. You just have a much better understanding of how this administration is operating.
yes,
Definitely more so than we've seen in the last administration. I think really more so than any prior administration, including the Trump administration. I think he's much more
yes,
open
yes,
now than he was open before, but I think he's even more so now.
yes, making more of an effort to purposely,
Yeah.
yes. Um, well, let's see. Oh my goodness. Are we what time is it? Oh, okay. I saw the countdown and I worried, wait a
Oh
second.
no.
Okay. Um, let's see. I was going to talk to you about, oh, I wanted to mention about J6 because when you were talking about being indicted and all these problems, I was
Hmm.
thinking, um, I don't know, you probably don't know, probably it's not like it probably wasn't that big a deal, but it was to me. Um, I was asked, I had someone on on this show, and I was asked by who was connected to the J6 and
Hmm.
provided it was like a charity for J6 people. And I said, if there's anything I can do, please let me know. And he had someone reach out to me, and I wrote up something for the appeals. of the J6
Oh,
prisoners,
that's great.
having to do with like they were trying to say that it was not that they needed to have a change of venue because
Hmm.
having these cases in DC, it was prejudiced against them.
Yeah, 100%.
And so they did all this research to show, it was very interesting. They did all this research to show that, like how many people in DC watch television, watch these programs, or watch this radio show or that radio show, and they were able to extrapolate from that. And my part was talking about unconscious bias.
Right.
Even if these people came in, and this is an issue now, I would love to know what you think about this. It's really an issue now in so many cases, especially high profile cases, where they ask, even Ghislaine's case, she's a good example of that, where they ask the jury, when they choose a jury, they have to fill out forms, questionnaires, and all of this, and they do voir dire where they ask them questions.
Right.
And but and these people, some people, of course, lie on purpose to get into the jury. And I think that that probably happened with Trump with some of these lawfare cases,
Hmm.
you know. Um, but also even people who tell the truth and uh, say they can be impartial and all of that, that really unconsciously, maybe they want to be impartial and they're telling the truth about that. But when it comes down to it, there may be reasons why they can't be impartial. So with the J6 people, I was talking about how, there's unconscious bias and explained what that was and how
Hmm.
that being in DC and being exposed to all of this media in DC would have
Yeah.
affected them on at least an unconscious level, even if they're not aware of it, and that would affect how they would vote as a juror. So that was
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. I think the jury pool here is very biased. I also think the unfortunately the bigger issue was the prosecutors. The prosecutors weren't honest and they didn't share Brady information. They didn't turn over the evidence that they were required to turn over. They didn't release the videotapes for these trials. And they relied on testimony of police officers who have now asked for immunity.
huh,
Um, I think the entire process was manufactured, which is quite scary, actually.
just
That they can manufacture 1,600 convictions. Um, that's a scary thing.
I mean, that's similar, and now we're going to have to take another break, but that's similar to the raid on Mar-a-Lago. If
Yep.
president, or former president could have his place raided, then we're all it can happen
Yep.
to all of us, of course.
Yep.
All right, so we need to take another break. My guest is Christina Bobb. Her new book, right off the press, is called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Dr. Carol's Couch, where we're talking about when the left doesn't win at the ballot box, they whine at the judge's bench. My guest again is Christina Bobb, the author. Well, first of all, this is her second book. Her first book we had talked about before, called Stealing Your Vote: The Inside Story of the 2020 Election and What It Means for 2024. Thank God, whatever rigging there was in 2024 wasn't enough. And yeah, I should ask you that about really whether
Yeah.
what you know about the 2024 uh, election. Anyhow, the current book is Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. So let's talk. I just want to tell people that the lawfare isn't over just because he became president and won. They're continuing. They will continue until the end of his presidency. And if he takes another year, they'll continue then too. Well, of course, they'll start before, they'll go crazy if he really dares to say he's going to take another year. Anyway, so there's something happening. But let me ask you before we get to the current thing that's happening today or that's been happening recently. Um, what kind of law or what kind of cheating went on in 2024?
Yeah, I think 2024 was better than 2020 because there was no COVID rules, right? If you remember in 2020, they had rolled out COVID. They said, you had social distancing, people couldn't show up to the polls. Don't come to the polls, just mail in your ballots. They issued emergency orders. All of these leftist governors issued emergency orders about mail-in ballots. So they changed the manner and procedures with the way that these elections were conducted, claiming emergency powers. They weren't able to do that in 2024. And so I think just eliminating the quote unquote COVID rules,
Oh yeah.
I think is what the difference was. Our elections are not secure by any means. As long as we've got mail-in ballots, we're going to have cheating. So I think there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up that way. But I think it was the elimination of the COVID rules that was the difference.
Mm. And yes, and President Trump is trying to get there to be no more mail-in ballots, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And then, of course, the whole other issue about allowing all of these illegal migrants, whatever, illegal aliens, to come in and to give them a way to vote, to give them documents so that they could vote,
Yeah.
is another crazy.
It's crazy that that's what the left wants to do, but they're doing that because they've lost the American base. They know that Americans do not want them in power. Americans do not want these leftist policies. They don't like these leftist politicians. And so, in order to try to stay in power, they have to give illegal aliens the right to vote, which they do not have. But they have to figure out a way for these illegal aliens to vote if they want to maintain power.
Yes, yes. So, all right, now something that I just tweeted about today is this woman named Natalie Rose Jones. She's 49. She's from New York. And apparently, she has been writing on social media, expressing her intent to assassinate Trump. She didn't. She described it in very graphic kinds of terms. Um, she was talking about taking out his larynx and like dismembering him. Just I'm not going to get into it. But anyway, so then she was arrested and well she was visited in New York as I understand it in her house and but then they didn't do anything to her so she went down to Washington and she was in some protest. I mean she was probably planning on trying to kill Trump if she could get close enough to him. Clearly, she's mentally ill. I mean, her friends have said that she's mentally ill. In fact, they said that she was diagnosed as schizophrenic. Now, I don't know if that's true, but if you have friends like that, she obviously has some mental illness because it's not just I'm going to kill, I'm going to shoot Trump, I'm going to kill him. It's like all this graphic, disgusting kind of
Right.
language. So, so then apparently at some point there was a grand jury who also voted not to indict her. Maybe they felt sorry for her because she had mental illness. I don't know. But ultimately, what has just finally happened is that the judge, DC District Chief Judge Jeb Boasberg,
Hmm.
apparently an Obama appointee, has released her. And I think with a an electronic monitor, and he told her to go see a psychiatrist. Now, hello, and you're going to just count on her following through with this? I mean, if she wanted to see a psychiatrist, she would have been in treatment already. I mean, I guess she was at some time, but clearly she doesn't want to stay in treatment. She wants to go and act out on her fantasies. What about that?
Yeah, well, what's particularly egregious about that is she has admitted in her interviews and in her interrogations by Secret Service and federal investigators that she wants to kill Donald Trump. Her intent is to kill Donald Trump. And yet they released her. However, the same Judge Boasberg here in DC, kept people who supposedly trespassed on January 6th, he kept them confined for years when
Yes.
they had no violent intent. They had no violent action. There was nothing threatening about them. Yet he kept them confined. Yet this crazy lady who says, I intend to kill President Trump. I want to do it. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to do it. He's like, yeah, sure. Go ahead. You're free to go.
Yes.
So it just goes to show, I don't know what else to say other than it's evil. It's absolutely evil what these judges are doing.
Well, I mean, I think that some of them are actually hoping that somebody's going to be successful.
I think they are.
And I worry about Trump because I know he probably is wearing a bulletproof vest or something, but he's just so out there. And I
Yeah.
think, where was he was on the roof
Yeah.
of the White House, right? The other day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking, what? Um, Not that not that someone would have known that he was going to do that. They probably weren't.
Right.
There could be people waiting outside, for just some kind of a shot. Um, anyway, so it really, and there really are, I mean, he has a fatwa out on him, and
Mhm.
which, for those uh, who don't know what that is, it's when religious leaders, terrorists, basically terrorists, religious leaders, put out a proclamation that if on somebody, and if anybody kills that person, they are going to get special honors when they get up to heaven, and they they meet Allah. They're going to get more than 72 virgins. They're going to get all kinds of good stuff. And so it's just a way of trying to incentivize people to
Yeah.
to do it. And there are enough people, and then Iran also, even before the fatwa, Iran has, apparently been paying people to assassinate him and all of that. It's it's I mean, it's not clearly he is doing all this because he loves it, even at the risk that he knows that there is. Um, let's see. What was I put some notes of things that I wanted to talk about. Can you think of any other? Well, Fannie Willis was a that was
Oh gosh,
sure.
she's a nightmare, is she not?
Oh my God. Did you have anything to do with that case?
No, not directly. Later, the special investigator, after the indictments came down, the special investigator tried to interrogate me, but I refused, and he didn't have a grand jury to subpoena me anymore. So, thankfully, I was left out of that one. But I mean, what an embarrassment. The case is still
Yes.
open. It's still pending. It's a cancer on that community, and it's a cancer on everybody involved in it. And the case has now changed. The defendants themselves are not really even having to deal with the case because the case has pivoted to whether Fannie Willis should keep her law license because of her inappropriate relationship with the special prosecutor, of the potential kickbacks that it appears she was getting from overpaying the special prosecutor who she had a romantic relationship with and the vacations that they took together. I mean, talk about a conflict. It's a huge embarrassment to Fannie Willis. And I mean, the case can't close fast enough.
Yes, just watching her, I mean, she should have lost her license just from looking at her on the stand. She was an embarrassment, like for her to be a lawyer, for all the lawyers in America, you were probably embarrassed for her that she
Yes.
represents your profession. And she
Yes.
felt like you could tell, anybody could tell that she was lying, you know.
No, and what's so infuriating about it is she can walk on the stand, walk up, sit down on the stand with her clothes on backwards and lie about things that she did that are unethical and potentially illegal with potentially FEC violations with the money that she says she took from her campaign and how she used it. And she's, living her best life. While those of us who have done nothing wrong have to fight for our bar license, have to fight to protect ourselves, to stay out of jail, to not be bankrupt, to not, all of these horrible things when we've done nothing wrong. And yet the attorneys on the left get away with whatever they want.
Yes. I hope, I hope America is watching. I mean, I hope they're realizing just how bad this is because they can get caught up in lawfare too, even if they have nothing to do with Trump. I mean, you know what I mean? In other words, there could be sneaky, illegal kinds of things happening in their cases too. I just wanted to mention, one of the things that I'm doing, I don't know if you heard me talk about this, but I've been working on it since March. It's been taking up my life, but I really care about it. I have put together, I am almost ready to actually send it in. But every time there's somebody who has Trump, I'm talking about Trump derangement syndrome. And
Right.
every time there's a new person who has Trump derangement syndrome, like the shooter in Minneapolis, who put
Yep.
Trump on his gun, I have to add these people to my proposal. I'm making a proposal to the American Psychiatric Association to make Trump derangement syndrome a formal diagnosis.
Oh, that's great.
And so I, want to do a very professional, detailed kind of job, and in the style that the DSM is written in now.
Yeah.
So I have it divided into mild, moderate, and major, severe cases. And so in the severe cases, I have some of these judges. And I wrote judges across America who put aside their oath of office by which they swore to uphold the Constitution in order to impulsively reinterpret laws or make new laws so they can oppose Trump's policies. And I mention specific ones, although there are certainly a lot more. Maybe if there's somebody that I left out that's really a worse example. Um, Federal Judge Michael Crawford, who released Mohsen Madawi, a Palestinian leader of the Columbia University riots from immigration detention. U.S. District Judge Alvin Hellerstein, who defied Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act to prevent the deportation of migrants. And Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan, who was indicted for helping an illegal alien escape from ICE.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the
Do
fact
you
that
have any, do you have any suggestions for somebody who's even more egregious?
oh gosh, I think there's so many. I mean, it's such an interesting topic because it's a real pathology. At least it appears that way. I'm not a psychologist. I will be amazed if you're actually able to get this, included as a diagnosis because I think the American Psychiatric Society or the medical boards themselves and the leadership boards of these themselves have it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
everything I've described on the legal side of coming after attorneys who supported Donald Trump, the same thing happened to doctors and psychiatrists and
Yeah.
all of these professional licensing organizations are coming after conservatives because they don't like the fact that we're saying, no, 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 we're capable of thinking for ourselves. We're capable of disagreeing with you in a civilized manner. And they don't want disagreement. They want everybody to agree. Everything has to be the same. You have to listen to us. There can be no differences. And so I think what you're doing is great. I think it's really important. But I'll be very curious to see how far you get because
Well, I
I think
agree
the
with,
societies themselves have that problem.
yes, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological
There you
Association, the
go.
American Medical Association
Yep.
are totally woke. I mean, I hadn't looked at the website of the American Psychiatric Association in a long time. I used to be very active with them, and I was on their public affairs committee and all kinds of things. I started the residence when I was a psychiatric resident at Bellevue.
Hmm.
I started a whole level of across America of, I mean, I don't know that every state has it, but that there would be a category for psychiatric residents, that there could be the residents group like in New York. I was,
Right.
the New York psychiatrists could belong to the branch of the APA. And so I did it for residents. Anyway, I was very much involved. So I looked recently, at their website, and I saw how woke it is. And before that, of course, I've been reading things, and I'm sure you have
Yeah.
too, like the American Medical Association doesn't want to say boys are boys and girls are girls. I mean, and people going to medical school now are not being taught, real medicine, appropriate, they're
Right.
taught woke medicine. So, but anyway, I am going to try. I'm going to do my best. That's why I was so careful in detailing everything and giving examples, of all the different levels of TDS. So we will
Right.
see. I mean, you can only try.
That's
Uh,
right. And I applaud you and I thank you for trying.
so, well, all right. Let's see. It's 1:57. I guess is there anything, I'm going to mention your book again, of course, but is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure we get in?
I just think it's important for the American people to know that, stay involved in this. If there's an issue that you care about, stay involved, whether you're raising your voice. Thank you so much to shows like this that are a little bit more of alternative media that give us another outlet. Just keep moving forward, keep your head up, stay encouraged. What President Trump is doing is very, very good for the nation. He's trying to root out this corruption, and he's trying to expose the corruption. So just hang in there, stay involved in areas where you're interested and where you have concerns, and yeah, just keep yourself informed, up to date, and participate in the larger discussion.
Yes, and when people say, "Oh, I'm so hopeless and it's so depressing and blah blah blah," the antidote to that is to get involved, as you're saying,
Exactly.
feel like you're doing something,
That's exactly right. And I have people ask me, they say, what do you say to people who go, oh, there's nothing we can do. America's doomed. It's going to be bad forever. How do you respond to that? And my answer, just like what you said, is, I never hear that from people who are involved. I've traveled all over the country for the campaign and for the RNC and on election integrity issues, and I've met with hundreds, probably thousands of volunteers at this point. And none of them have that attitude. Everyone's excited about our future. Everyone's excited about, what President Trump is doing and the possibilities for America. So the only people who I hear complaining about it are people who aren't involved. So if you are one of those, doomsdayers, I would say get involved. It might change your mind.
And one way they can start is by reading your book and get
Yes.
inspired. Again, it's called Inside Defiant. I love that. Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. And look
Yep.
out for it, folks. Look out for this lawfare. Just remember, if there's something that, well, there'll be one thing after the other more against Trump. Just look out for the sneaky parts, that
Yep.
aren't really constitutional. Well, thank you so much, Christina Bobb. I wish you, first of all, a ton of luck with your book, ton of
Thank you.
success, and a ton of success with everything that you're doing because, this is so important with Judicial Watch and everything else.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for being on the show and for sharing all this important stuff with my listeners, watchers. I keep saying listeners now that
Watchers, that's right.
yes. Well, thank you. And thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Dr. Carole's